Well, folks, it's here, the last day of the week and the last day of April. And we've had quite the month. As I look back on last month's activity, the S&P was up 6.01. I realize we have one more day to go, so that will vary a little bit. But NASDAQ up 6.7 and the Russell up 3.10. So we've had quite the month, and we've seen that leadership come back into the large cap stocks. And yesterday certainly was a continuation of that, as we saw Facebook soar like 7% in one day. So there is still a lot of strength in these big large cap stocks. Today we have 60 earnings reports coming out, and on the top end of these reports there is actually Exxon, Chevron, and the one I'm watching tomorrow, which is an old bellwether from going way back, is Illinois Tool, which is ITW. And I'm going to watch that fairly close to get an idea from a manufacturing viewpoint what's really going on in the economy. So this could be a pretty good indicator. I'll talk about that on Sunday night if there's something significant there. Yesterday's action was moving higher again. We traded well above the 4,200 handle. The S&P finished up 0.7, the NASDAQ up 0.2, and the Russell up 0.4. Now, I talked about in the short live stream that I did yesterday is that we were likely to get an RTX sell signal, and we did get that. And we're seeing the futures down about 16 handles last check that I had. So we are definitely seeing some backfilling. There's some other things going on technically that are bringing in some concerns. But yesterday we had GDP come out. I mentioned that maybe there was a big surprise coming there. It really wasn't a surprise, but it was in line with expectations. It was expected to be at 6.5. It came out at 6.4. Also in the GDP report was the GDP price deflator indicator. It was up 4.1%. So as I mentioned in last night's video, this transitory inflation that Powell keeps talking about is going to be prevalent for a while, and I don't believe it's going to be transitory. It's going to be around and accelerate from the levels that we're seeing right now. Also yesterday, initial claims came in at 552, so that was in line. The continued claims actually upticked to 3.66. That number still remains above that 3.2 number that I've been talking about, so it's really a non-factor. Also, we had new home sales coming out at 1.9% up, and that was expected as well. As we come into the end of this month, the big question always is sell in May and go away going to be a factor? I can tell you from what I'm seeing here, there is some vulnerability in the markets all of a sudden. It has turned fairly quickly, but I think it's minimal downside. I don't see any big downside here at all, maybe a few days of a minor correction. But our database continues to get more traction. I'll go through all the details in a minute, but we have pushed up to 61.4%. And overall, what we're seeing here is the traction in the market starting to see some positive rotation, and that's a good sign. As far as what we're likely to see today, it's anybody's guess, but it does look like we're going to see some squaring up of the books for the final day of the month before we start the month of May. And my expectation is that we'll just see kind of a grinding. We've already traded an S2 on the futures overnight. We've corrected most of it already from the RTX number, but we'll have to come into early morning trading and watch these numbers as they come in. Let's go ahead and take a look at the charts and see how this month and week are about to end. As we review the WaveTech database, as I mentioned in opening comments, we did have 563 buy signals and 313 sell signals. We moved the bullish percent up just slightly to 61.4. I talk about these numbers all the time. 62% is a key pivot number. If we get above that level, we'll see some more traction on the markets. And as usual, today is Friday. It's also the end of the month, so this is one of the big rotations that we see in our database. Not only do we run the intermediate models, we also run our monthly models as well on our Portfolio Expert platform. So we run secular and intermediate models for the market. So I'll be talking about that on Sunday night. My expectation for the intermediates is to see some positive rotation. So as we finish this week and month, I don't see any major negative rotation coming into the markets. As we begin with the S&P futures, I mentioned in the opening comments that there's some things going on technically that are somewhat concerning. I've been talking about this narrowing volatility range or the volatility in the market grid, and this is typically a precursor to the market moving a bit lower. Because of this low volatility, we did see an RTX sell signal on the futures and the cash. I'll cover both of those in this section. But what we're seeing here is some weakness overnight. Not a lot, down 9 handles. We were down about 16 handles at one stage. We're just after the London opening. This video is being done late tonight. So we're into the London opening right now. So there's some minor short covering. Also, as we come into Friday, a couple reports I didn't mention. We do have University of Michigan consumer confidence coming out. That's expected to show a reading of 0.865. We also have the PCE, personal income and spending, coming out. That will possibly be impactful as well. So we have some information coming out. But as we get back into the S&P here, the thing I want to point out here is looking at the PPMs, and they're losing substantial momentum. All of a sudden, the PPM2 has turned down through its second derivative. PPM1 is actually out of trend mode. So we're seeing this thing fade very quickly. PPM3 is still in trend mode, but it represents the 40-day moving average, which was way down at 40.34. So here's what is likely to happen out of this pattern. And the next 2 sessions will be critical. If we do manage to close lower, especially if we see the market move down toward the STX number at 41.73, that would be significant. So far overnight, we've traded down to 41.86, S2 41.88. So we've satisfied an S2 number, and this is possible based on the RTX number. Typically on the day after an RTX sell, you'll move into that S2, S3 level, and we've already printed S2. So we could go down to S3, and I think there's some vulnerability to come down toward that STX number, which is also the 10-period moving average. And that level at the 10-period moving average, 41.67, is going to be key. And that number is moving up about 10 handles per day. So as we come into Monday, there's going to be some vulnerability on the downside. And the expectations are not big, as I mentioned. The expectation is to trade down to the 21-period moving average at 41.34. But the loss in momentum here will continue if we do that. And that will suggest that we could see even a further correction. Most of the downside expectation will be evident more on the weekly charts, which I'll cover on Sunday night. For right now, the extreme in this pattern is that 41.34 level, which is the 21-period moving average, and that's not going to be hit today. It is possible that we've already satisfied the downside at 41.88. If we get back above 41.96, then we're probably going to see an R1, S2 range for the day, and it will be all about where we close. And I don't see us penetrating the 10-period moving average. There's going to be at least a couple of days sideways with the potential of some downside, or if there's some profit taking as we come into the end of the month. As we look at the SPX daily, you'll see clearly we got the RTX sell. RTX was 41.99.42. We closed 42.11.47. We had a high of 42.18. That's actually satisfied some of the numbers on the weekly chart that I discussed in last night's video. So we did spike up above there. And now what we're likely to see as we look at the cash, an S2 number be 41.98. The possibility of going down to around 41.91 is likely on the cash. So this will be the downside. And all of the PPMs that we're looking at here will actually roll over tomorrow. The futures are already reflecting the movement in the PPMs. The next market I'll cover is NASDAQ. NASDAQ's down 48 handles right now, down 0.34 on the session. We're trading right at the 10-period moving average, 13,900. As we look at the market grid for today, we've traded down to the S2 number, 13,870. So we've been below that 10-period moving average, which is significant. The 21-period moving average, 13,824. That would be an S3 hit today. I do expect to see the market hold that level, but just like with the S&P, we're seeing PPM 1 and 2 roll over here on the NASDAQ futures, and this is a significant event, I believe. If nothing else, it will set up a minor correction. If we do get through this 13,824 level, then the next level would be potentially back to around the 12,800 level. This next couple days will be significant in the pattern. The final market I covered tonight is gold. Gold is actually traded as I thought it would this week, as we traded between the 10-week and 21-week moving averages. I'll show you that in the middle, but we're continuing to see momentum just very flat here as market starts to set up a pattern that is likely to be bullish. I'm going to put this cursor is on a cycle warning, and this cycle warning suggests that there is a low cycle coming in even today or on Monday, and we should start to see the market start to move back up again. PPM 3 is accelerating. That's actually a really good sign that that underlying longer-term average is starting to turn up. So my expectation is that this pattern will continue to develop in a bullish formation. A final look, as I mentioned, this week we've traded the 21-period moving average 1799, the 10-period moving average is 1743. The range this week has been 1754 to 1789. So we've traded between those levels, but we're seeing some really nice acceleration on PPM 1. PPMs turn around over the next couple of weeks and start to show a more bullish formation, ultimately moving us toward the objective I've been talking about, up around the 1861 level for the initial move out of this pattern. This will complete the video for tonight. Thank you so much for participating in the live streams this week and following me on the channel. Have a great weekend, everyone, and I will talk to you on Sunday night. Hey, everyone. Bob Kendall here. Just want to thank you all for watching my videos. If you do want to support the channel, go to www.kendallreport.com/WaveTech. Sign up for our software. You get Market Grid on 165 individual stocks and indices. You also will get 16,500 buy and sell signals on our entire database. I thank you so much for supporting the channel. Those of you who have already signed up, thank you so much.